UBC, inspiring Uganda.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100-066 or send a free SMS to your report on 8500. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
A very warm welcome this week, this Wednesday, the 12th of October 2022. My name is Charles Odongtho, your moderator, and this week we come back to you with yet another edition of the series Uganda at 60. Uganda celebrated its independence or self-rule, and on Sunday specifically, on the 9th of October, and 60 years ago on this 9th of October, we got independence, and we are asking ourselves 60 years later, where do we stand? How do we fare? Today we are looking at agriculture as a sector, a huge sector if you like, and we are asking ourselves, what can agriculture do to promote or advance socio-economic transformation of Uganda? Where did we stand by 1962 is the question we are going to be asking. We are also going to be asking the inevitable question. The current administration came into power in 1986. Many years ago, over 3 decades, coming now to 4. What did they do since 1986? Have they fared better? We are going to be asking all those questions. And where do we stand? We know for sure now that about 68% of Uganda's population is still existing within the subsistence agriculture, and that also will have its own questions. To discuss all this, I have from my immediate left, today I'm going to start with the immediate left, since it is balanced as a panel. I'm starting with the Council Sarah Birete, who is a panelist on this show behind the headlines, and she is a lawyer, she is a civil society activist, and she is executive director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Good to see you again. Next on Sarah's left is Dr. Dick Nwamanya, who is the president of Uganda National Farmers Federation, UNFF, and is the man who speaks on behalf of the farmers. And he says that his is actually rural philosophy. Doctor, you're most welcome back to this show. You were here before, so it's not a maiden appearance. You're most welcome back.
Thank you, Charles. Good evening, viewers and fellow villagers who are there outside there. I'm happy to be here with you.
Good. We will be interrogating the level of villageness in Dr. Nwamanya with his well-done suit and, you know, very crisp. And if villagers are like this, then agriculture has achieved a lot. But good to see you, Doctor.
We are going in the right direction.
Next to Dr. Nwamanya is a professor and associate professor, Sarah Sally. She plies her trade lecturing at Makerere University, and she is the Dean, School of Women and Gender Studies. She is director of the Center of Excellence in Notions of Identity, you know, big things there. And she's going to be discussing with us some of these issues as well. Professor, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Charles, and good evening, viewers. Good.
Finally, we have the Honorable Chagulaga Fred Bwino. He is a retired major, and in agriculture now, the transformation of agriculture is an operation. It's not a mere, it's not just something small. And Major is State Minister for Agriculture, Animal Industry, and Fisheries in charge of agriculture. You're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Good. I want us to start from asking the man who is in charge of looking at this sector where you stand before we come to the people who are involved on a day-to-day basis. If you were asked, and if you were asked in 2 minutes or 3 minutes to give an account of your performance as a sector, what would you exactly, candidly and honestly tell the people out there? Imagine that they are your examiners. They are marking you. They know the answers to the question already. What would you say where you stand as a country, how far you have come?
Thank you very much. Well, I would start from the broader picture. That for job creation and wealth creation in the country, for social transformation, we in government recognize the 4 sectors. Number 1 is commercial agriculture. Number 2 is industries, both big and small. And number 3 are the services, ranging from shops, restaurants, hotels, all those services. And then finally, ICT, information communication technology. So if our country is to transform, then we have to look at those 4 sectors. And now, coming to the sector of agriculture, because you are asking me to account in as far as agriculture is concerned. In agriculture, we have distilled the concept that as any RM government, if we are to support agriculture in this country, then we must first understand that we have various categories of people, mainly based on land holding, because we cannot support all of them similarly. So we have those people that have about 0.4, rather 0.25, call it a quarter of an acre, up to probably an acre or two. Those are the smallest. And then we have those that have 4 acres, up to 4 acres. And then we have those that have 4 acres and above. So based on that classification, we in the government have come up with packages for the various categories. For those that have 4 acres, we have come up with what we call the 4-acre model, where we advise them to mainly do high-value agricultural activities. And we have identified 7 of those, namely coffee, poultry for eggs, piggery, zero grazing for milk. Then we have fish farming. Then we have food, growing food. And then we have growing pasture for the zero grazing for the milk. So we advise them to carry out those, because if you have a small piece of land, you can't break even, you can't carry out agriculture profitably unless you do high value agriculture. Now, for those that have smaller plots, 0.25, we advise them not even to go venture into coffee. We instead advise them to do backyard farming, poultry, piggery, mainly those small, and for them, they may not even be able to grow the grass for the zero grazing. If they have to have the zero grazing, then they have to buy the feed. They have even to buy the feed for chicken, feed for the piggery. Then we have those that have slightly bigger land holdings, 6 acres and above. These are the medium and large scale farmers. We advise them to do the relatively low value crops and the enterprises, because they are able to do it profitably because they are doing it at a large scale. They enjoy economies of scale. And then finally, we have those that...
Honorable Minister, you need to, today you are speaking to the local person,
yes,
in the village, the voter there.
Yes.
So when you talk about economies of scale,
yes,
they need to understand you properly. What do you mean exactly? You need to break
what I mean points. Is that if you have a big piece of land, it becomes easier for you to produce low value crops. For example, maize. If you are growing 100 acres of maize, you'll be able to get some profit compared to a person that have a piece of land that probably as big as this studio. That one wouldn't get any profit from growing maize. This is what I mean. But the last category, before we get lost, is the plantation farmers. These are people that have vast square miles and square miles, and they can be able to grow single crops. For example, oil palm, like Kalangala, has 600 hectares of oil palm. You have sugarcane, Madivan, Chinyara in the Bunyoro, like Rugazi. These are single crops. It can also be, it can be oil palm, it can be sugarcane, it can be maize, or any other that can be grown single. Now, what have we done as government? Because you have asked me to account. So we have a series of packages to assist the various categories. For the small scale people, we have come up with the PDM, the parish development model, particularly for those that are still in subsistence. That's a package for them. And what is in this package? We send 100 million shillings to the parish small bank called a SACCO. Then farmers that fall in that category access that money as a loan, low interest loan. And here what we are addressing is the challenge of expensive agricultural credit. So that is one. The second one is for those that are bigger, we are addressing issues of seed, issues of disease control, issues of mechanization, issues of irrigation, issues of post-harvest handling, issues of processing, issues of marketing. And we are also encouraging, assuming that they are not too big, medium, for them to form farmer groups.
Okay.
So that they can be able to aggregate and market as a group. So it's a package of things that the government is doing.
Okay. Yes. Thanks a lot, and thanks for giving us that basic information to start from. Dr. Dick, you represent the farmers as a federation. Are these different packages being felt across the spectrum, across the country, across the different groups as enumerated by the minister? Are you feeling it?
Thank you, Charles. My answer is yes. And I'm going to validate my answer. Why? In Nkoreo, or in the village where I come from, they say that somebody who's coming from underground does not complain on the level of sunshine he finds on the surface. If we look at what we have, where we have come from, let me give you an example where the sector that I specialize in. I'm a dairy farmer. My father was a dairy farmer. In 1986, nearly 4 decades ago, we were around 200 million liters of milk. Today, we produce 2.8 billion liters of milk. If you're a good mathematician, get 2.8 billion liters, subtract 200 million. Over 200 million, you calculate the percentage of growth of the dairy sector in the last 4 decades. You will be overwhelmed by the number. Number two, for us, actually, we think that there is a revolution taking place in 2 frameworks. One is the NDP3. We are now on the 3rd cycle of national development planning. And each cycle has its lessons that is conferred to us, the national leaders. I thank my minister for enumeration on that. And 2, in physics, I did physics at A level. The closer you are to the fire, the more heat you do what?
You feel.
So it was very wonderful for the leadership, the NRM government, to think about taking development to the people that they need through the parish development model. Now, there are people who are going to gather stones and perit them at me in this perspective. But I've told you, somebody who's coming from underground, he cannot complain for the level of sunshine he finds on the surface.
There is a lot that you have seen already.
So what I look at is the right path or the right path, the right direction, we could adjust the speed. But to bring services to the people, to bring development to the people, there are two ways, actually. It's a two-way traffic. You get feedback when you deliver the service. When you do see the indicators, I'm waiting. I'm actually very happy, Sam, today particularly, at the university, I was assigned new responsibilities. And what is interesting me now, I would be specifically following the parish model developments with, I'm going to construct, it's my new agenda as a village philosopher, to construct an indicators of progress at household level. If those of you who have done some bit of yes, you've heard of Adam Smith, you've heard of Ricardo, you have David Ricardo, you've heard of those people in international trade. States used to be, nations used to be the ones to trade. You hear comparative advantage between the states. Now it is states actually have shifted. It is individuals who trade. If you are not skilled, then you don't have any skill to trade, you don't have any skill to produce anything, then your country cannot. So a country trades because of the basket of skills it has. In this sense, the closer as a nation you train more people to be able to produce goods and services, the more superior you become in international market. So the same thing with development. If you want actually development to take place, you move to the households that need to be changed. And the parish development model takes away development from the center, command center, directly to the household that needs to be. And me as a village philosopher, I would be looking at what changes are happening at household level. Now, let me be forward-looking. You asked me this question at the end of NDP 3, and I will give Honorable Minister the marks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As a farmer, how much, yes, the dairy sector has really done well. No doubt there are figures to show for that. But overall, how would you rate where we are now, where the farmers are, the agriculture as a sector is, if you have those statistics?
I use the year 1986 as a benchmark. And we had the know-how completely destroyed. Extension system. We're coming from the war. Extension system, the know-how, how to deliver, how to do. The know-how is how to do. It had been completely destroyed. Now, the government has been struggling. I am a farmer, I'm not spokesperson of government, but I have to give credit where I see it. Yeah. Extension system was destroyed, and to reorganize the extension system, it means resource allocation. To get to resource allocation, it means you have to have a budget and the source of it. Partners have given, development partners have given, government has given. We didn't have revenue, tax revenue as a country to be able to cater for such services. The second is credit. Farming as a business also takes credit. It takes finance. If you don't have a source of favorable money, you can't run a successful business. All businesses around the world, they borrow. And they borrow, invest, and get returns on it. So that was a problem. But if I return to the issue of know-how, and so far where we are, because you can look at our GDP. Again, I give you the numbers. In 1986, 8.6 billion. Right now, the president was trying to, I saw some contention around the president declaring our country a lower middle income. That is over $1,000 US. So if we are 44 million people, that means we are that is around 44 billion. If you want to calculate the percentage change in the last 4 decades, yes, guess 44 minus 8 billion, then you subtract by 8 billion, you will get over 400% change in economic dynamics in the country. But somebody who, again, is comparing with advanced nations, that's why I said somebody might get stones and start hitting me now because of the situation they are looking. But we're looking at the numbers. The other very beautiful number you have to look at is you quoted 68.9. But we have numbers from Uganda Bureau of Statistics indicating that we are 39, the subsistence farmers, me included, we are 39% of the country, meaning we have moved approximately 20-something%. So, but also look at the structure. The theme of the debate today is about economic transformation. Economic transformation is just a change in the structure of the economy. When we entered, when an NRM government came in power in 1986, agriculture was above 65% as contribute of GDP. Now it's around less than 25%. So that is, transformation is already existing. If you look at the agricultural exports, so now the issue is, do you get to give, there is a sequential liberation, sequential progress. You create, that's why the president was indicating, infrastructure is an enabler of other sectors. So if I diverted resources, if I committed resources to infrastructure development as an enabler, then I am not doing badly in terms of preparing the economy for takeoff. So what I can say, and what I have studied in history of development, I would think still the efforts of this government, of the progress as a country in terms of transformation, we are on the right path, because it possibly, if it took us 4 decades, you correct to the nearest 36. If you correct to the nearest, that was going to be 4 decades. If it took us 4 decades to cut 40%, that is worth 65% of GDP by the time we took over power, and we collected that, then the remaining 25% to be around the Americas will not need an extra 4 decades. We might be coming closer to the structure of the economy changing. In other words, the takeoff velocity is very close.
Good. Professor, from where you sit, you do a lot of comparisons, you do a lot of studies, you see these things from even an academic perspective, as well as from the perspective of these gentlemen who are in the kitchen, so to speak, and working closely with the farmers. How do you look at the figures? Are they meeting somewhere? As we talk right now, the ordinary farmer or the ordinary Ugandan is saying that I'm not feeling this transformation that is going on. Why are they not probably feeling it? Is it still the post-COVID effect, as we say, the recent wars in places like Ukraine or Russia, or is there something wrong with the numbers?
Yes, thank you very much, Charles, for that question. I think if we are to go back to what the theme of this was, 60 years of independence, how has the agriculture sector performed and what has been its role in economic transformation? I think we do ourselves a disservice to start from only the parish development model, in as much as I appreciate everything people here have said before me, because we need to historicize and would need also to contextualize what we are talking about. It is not the first time that Ugandans are talking about agriculture or that Ugandans are engaging in agriculture. So if we are to make sense of the sector and where we are going, we would have to compare with history, because you asked us to compare. So when we make comparisons as researchers, we compare across time and we also compare across context. So if we are to compare across time, we would have to look how did the sector perform from the 50s or the 40s, 50s, 60s to date, okay? What worked and what did not work. And when we do that, then it will help us to know, are we reinventing the wheel or aren't we reinventing the wheel? For example, when you read the history of agriculture in this country, you will learn that the period of the 50s and 60s were the periods people really got heavily unionized. They got into cooperatives. I think by 1952, there were 500,000 registered farmers in cooperatives with a constitution, with institutions like banks, with institutions like ginaries, the whole concept of a farm district. I mean, a political district having a farm enterprise, whether it's a ginnery or a maize mill or everything. So, of course, we did have issues in the 70s and in the 80s. And in 1986, when we were trying to pick up, is when we are slapped down with the Uruguay rounds and the whole structural adjustment programs, which takes out the little in terms of extension that we have had. So, right now, we are doing well, and we thank government that she has prioritized particular enterprises. The challenge is, how do we move to make this transformation occur? Because we should not look at transformation as only coming from agriculture, out of the agriculture sector. We can also transform the agriculture sector if we have the right policies that are responsive to the populations that we have and to the needs that we have. Now, the honorable minister has talked about the value areas that they have picked. Now, how accommodative are those of the different farmers we have around? Okay? We have talked about infrastructure, but what infrastructure do the farmers need to transform the sector as an agriculture sector? I think the preoccupation should not be just to drive people out of the sector, but to actually also develop the sector, because the sector is our comparative advantage. We all sing about the mantra of agriculture being the backbone of this country. It employs around 70% of the population of this country. Most of our labor is in agriculture. Around 50% of that, or 56% of that, is women. The rest is peasantry. So as we are having this debate, we should ask ourselves whether PDM has these different levels, the household and the rest. One, the question we should ask ourselves is, how responsive is that to the people that we seem to be targeting? Is our task as a government, as a country, about conserving people in peasantry so that they produce the little things they can produce in the back garden, and by the way, that is also very good for household nutrition? Or should we be thinking of graduating the so many peasants? I think my neighbor said you're around 70%. Should we keep the 70% as peasants in perpetual peasantry? Or should we be thinking of graduating those peasants into the larger scale farmers to the point that they're actually big, so that farming is an enterprise, so that it's not just peasantry? You also asked me about what I see across space. Now, across contexts, we also would love to know where countries have developed by simply conserving people in peasantry, okay? So, I don't seem to have an example that has done that. So it is good to make people comfortable where they are, but I think we should have bigger goals to take people at a notch higher, because the issues and challenges of the sector are known, and they have been known for years. It is the whole issue of the whole value chain not being very well harnessed. We don't have I mean, even when you visit farms of people, big farmers, and we have some big farmers in this country, they are struggling on their own, putting valley dams on their farms, to identifying markets from I don't know where. If they are going to go into perishables like flowers, they have to come with their own cooling plants and everything. So if we have to think and give subsidies to some of those people so that they grow and employ more, but also have a way of saying, how do we support the farmer household with basics? Like, how do we collect them together? You know, cooperatives I mean, we phased out, but how do we are now having circles, and that's going to be the basis of PDM. But because most of the time people say they need these things. What is lacking is we don't have enough production. People want this, they want it in tons. And even when you look around and call your friends, you cannot amass that kind of wealth. So we need infrastructure that will speak to things like storage, to things like processing, to things like value addition, as the president always says, to things like transportation, to whatever it is, and issues like cooling plants for those that are in perishables, but also the identification of markets. The other thing I would like to say is I'm coming from a university where these things are studied on a daily. In Makerere University, we have a very well-established College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. A lot of the challenges the sector is facing, they have actually documented that. Knowledge transfer, extension, technology transfer, information. But we seem to have a disconnect in that because extension was dismantled and privatized and dismantled, people expect the agricultural scientists to be the one to develop the thing and then take it below, okay? So there's that kind of disconnect. What is the linkage between our College of Agriculture with the production unit at the district, with the ministry? Because the production unit is what is actually taking everything to the farmer household. So if the production unit and the ministry are not talking directly with the College of Agriculture, finding out what are your latest innovations, I can just give an example of agriculture. Our college has produced agriculture for a very long time, but yet we still import agriculture. So where are twin connecting? Or wouldn't it be better if we said, okay, this is your innovation, you have done agriculture, we do now commercialization, knowledge uptake, which are the factories in the country that can produce agriculture at a large scale. And then you have this kind of partnerships, okay? Then you can have an example like soil testing kits. Our soil testing kits are largely bought by the people in Rwanda than people in Uganda. So there's a lot happening in this country, but we lack, I think, the right connections for information flow. We lack the right connections in terms of, sharing experiences, supporting each other. So I really support the whole idea of the circles and getting people together, but we should dream big to get people out of peasantry so that peasantry is not a norm, it's not a way of life. I know we want to celebrate these things sometimes as social scientists, but actually they are not. These are economic systems that can be developed and we go further. But of course it will call for paying more attention to the sector beyond rhetoric. It was heavily privatized and I don't know how much incentives our farmers in this country have to engage in larger scale production. But if the PDM cash is the kind of incentive we are going to have, but then it is a loan, it will scare certain people, especially if you're a very small time farmer, to engage in that. So my point in brief is, if we are going to make any comparisons and make sense of the agricultural sector over 60 years, we need to compare it across time and across context. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. I liked when Professor was presenting. The minister was taking notes, and so he must be very good student, and I'm expecting very fundamental answers from him, and more questions are going to come from Sarah. Your namesake talks about dreaming big, which is a very important characteristic that successful people, successful societies have. You know, you need to think big, innovate big, and find solutions to the challenges that you face. But she mentioned something about which I think we need to inquire more into. The right connections are lacking. And then she underlines it with the example that actually some neighboring, some neighbors are actually appreciating more the benefits of research that, universities like Makerere are doing by uptaking their products. Where do you think that that connection has to be made stronger and to impact our economy and transform it?
Yeah, thank you, Charles. I think, and to build on what Professor Sarasari has said, really to discuss agriculture in the context of transforming a nation, you need to look at three things: markets, chains, and sustainable development strategy. We all know that we grew up singing agriculture being a backbone of our economy. Even during COVID, the lockdowns, it further proved its resilience and ability to, to absorb economic shocks and keep the country running. And also to say that agriculture has been contributing a lot, like a professor has taken us through the cycle. I think agriculture contributed a lot during the post-independence, immediate post-independence, the first 10 years, when agriculture contributed more than half of our GDP and almost 100% of our foreign exchange earnings. But the international markets have since changed from traditional cash crops or tropical crops like coffee, cotton, tea, cocoa, a shift to fruits, vegetables, flowers, that need high skills, high storage, high processing, and quicker transportation means as compared to coffee, cotton, and tea. So as much as there has been progress, and Dr. Kamuganga, started on that level as if he doesn't expect anything, that Nyankore adage of saying if you are coming from a hall, then you cannot discuss issues of how much sunshine you are receiving. So he really put his expectations solo.
But you guys are only falling short of not first cite for us, recite for us the saying in Nyankoe, because so that we then can.
Argo kuzumu tagayamushana. Meaning that if you are from a deep hole, yes, then even you celebrate a little sunshine. But we are not from a deep hole. This is a country that has celebrated 6 decades of independence. 60 years of self-rule. You inherited the country where agriculture was #1 in terms of employment, in terms of GDP, in terms of foreign exchange contribution. As we talk today, our GDP contribution is 24. Of course, it's good to diversify, but agriculture contributes 24% of GDP. Unfortunately, it still employs 70% of Ugandans. So you have a population, 70% of Ugandans contributing 24% of GDP. And that's what we are celebrating, the little sunshine. That we are celebrating, that we shouldn't question. So if you have 70% of the population locked up in this mass poverty, that they can only contribute 24% of GDP, and you leave 30% to contribute 60, that is 66% of GDP. Is this enough sunshine? You have a population locked up in poverty, with a few commercial farmers that are able to make lots of money, and a lot of 85% of farmers are smallhold. You wanted facts? I thought I'm bringing in the mathematics. 85% of farmers are small-scale farmers. Many of them, like the president normally calls it, they work for the stomach. Chidachoka. That they work only for eating. Those are the majority Ugandans.
For charm.
Eh?
He says for charm,
yes,
for eating.
Yes, so what we should be discussing is how do we get this 70% population out of poverty? Not to celebrate the few scattered 15% commercial, medium and large scale farmers that are able to contribute. Many of these farmers are out of the money economy.
Exactly.
So what are we celebrating? What are the gains? From independence, what are the gains? If you look at the contributions of the cooperative societies, for which NRM presided over their demise, they were able to bring in the expertised farmers. They were able to bring inputs, including improved seedlings and fertilizers. They were able to provide storages at parish level. Every parish had a collection center for produce, where they would take care of the quality, the post-harvest quality control. They would find markets, and they would guarantee price stability. This infrastructure was in every part of Uganda. I don't know for what reasons. I think largely it was political, destroying the cooperative movement, which put down the incomes of farmers, which took away the security of farmers and all the services, benefits that the cooperatives were offering. And the farmer was left in the jungle, survival for the fittest. Yeah. If Dr. Kamganga's father, who was a dairy farmer like my father, had the capacity to maneuver as an individual, you would somehow keep surviving. But what happened to the other farmers that had no means? Did we take stock of what happened to them? And how do we pick them? If you look at why the rural population is stuck in poverty, agriculture has capacity, immense capacity, to contribute to economic development. But there is no trickle down to get these people stuck in poverty. So what are we failing to connect as a country? As we talk today, 12.5 million Ugandans are struggling to afford $1 a day. Mm-hmm. So what are we doing about that vacuum? If you look at how the Asian tigers, of course we need also to compare with other countries at independence, that were at the same level with Uganda. You can look at Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan. We were at the same economic level. Today we can't even check where they are in terms of racing. We are nowhere. I know that they did rapid industrialization and leveraged their progress in terms of that diversification. But we need to ask ourselves, what have we failed to do in terms of comparing with other countries? What is it that we need to do instead of sitting here and just stamping about the little that we can achieve? We need to challenge ourselves to achieve much more. If you look at the number, the population, 70% depending on agriculture, we are way above the average dependence for sub-Saharan Africa. The average dependence of less developed countries is 53%. We are at 70%. Sub-Saharan Africa is at 60%. We are still above average countries in Africa. So what is it that they are doing better than us? Why have we failed to develop the people depending on the land? And what is happening to the land? We are faced with challenges of climate change today. We have people across the country swept by floods, killed by landslides. Bridges are being swept away. We are still stuck in poor quality feeder roads, with the rural countryside becoming impassable out of an ordinary rainy season. And we don't even have money to fix those roads. So the farmer cannot even take their little produce to the market. We still have challenges of imbalanced development in this country. Imbalanced development. If you look at the poverty map by UBC, we know that the North and East are really doing terribly badly as compared to the Central and West. What affirmative actions, strategies are we putting for balanced development in this country? As a chairman for the Farmers Association is celebrating excess milk. Federation, sorry, Farmers as Federation. Excess milk in millions or billions of liters.
I have a lot of...
No, I'm coming.
I have a lot of excesses that I can give you
Yes.
the numbers.
Okay, before you bring
we
the
can talk about
numbers,
the mathematics.
as
yes.
the farmers celebrate excesses, we have people dying of famine in Karamoja.
Exactly.
Why can't we transport your excess? Feed the dying skeletons that we watch every day from Karamoja. Now we are depending on church. Pastor Kayanji is leading, feeding people in Karamoja. As a government, we cannot feed our own people. And we talk of excesses on television. What is the use of those excesses to a dying person in Karamoja? So these are the questions we must interrogate.
Good, good. Honorable Minister, at least Dick had to help you take some of the notes because they expanded so many, the questions, and I don't even know where to start from. But I also wanted to add, for me,
I could help you.
Yeah.
To locate where to start from.
Just a minute.
Yes.
I also wanted to add, as Sarah Birete asked the numerous questions, the topic we are discussing, and mine is from the topic, we are talking about the role of agriculture in economic transformation. Yeah. Economic transformation is the underlined word. And for me, mine is basic. Picking from the sporadic reports from Ministry of Finance, Ministry of and URA, that majority, almost, is it 68% of the people or the districts that are paying taxes, to the the national envelope, as they call it, are from largely 3 districts, which are all urban and probably not relying on agriculture so much. Mpiji, Kampala, Wakiso, yes. And then the outliers like Mukono. Those are the districts that are paying close to 70 plus 70, in excess of 70% taxes. Meaning that majority of the other 142 districts are not paying taxes, and providing further evidence that probably they don't have the capacity. Government is the one actually paying school fees for even our parents who, for the children from primary. And Sarah is complaining, I think rightly so, that in the past when agriculture was agriculture through the cooperatives, these parents could pay school fees and not complain. So where is the problem? Then now you can add that to then locate where to start the answers from, Honorable Minister.
Yes, I first of all want to thank Professor, who took us back
in history
and guided that we should compare what happened then and what it is now. And at that very point, I wanted to remind my fellow panelists that in the 60s, we had an economy based on the colonial interests. As you remember, they emphasized coffee, cotton, tea, and tobacco. And they zoned this country, northern Uganda, to produce cotton, parts of the east to produce coffee, and some parts to produce cotton, parts of the west to produce tea. And then they put up a railway system, and then they shipped raw materials out of the country. With me, I cannot celebrate that situation. And I must say that one of the achievements of this government has been reversing that situation, reversing the colonial kind of economy and diversifying the economy, so that now we talk of an economy with various enterprises, cotton, coffee, tea, fruits, vegetables, and we are exporting these to Europe, to the UK. Of course, UK is not in the European Union, to the Middle East markets, all over. And if you have to look at, for example, coffee, as we talk now, we are earning more than 800 million US dollars.
From?
Compare with what we were getting, like in 1986. So one of the achievements that this government can think about is that we have dismantled the colonial economy and set up a new kind of economy that is diversified and that is not based on a narrow thinking of cash crops and food crops. Food crops are very good cash crops. People are exporting sweet potatoes and getting a lot of money. People exporting pepper and getting money. Now, having said that, I want to appreciate my sister, Dr. Birete, for her bring up the issue of challenges. Of course, we cannot say that we are without challenges. We have a lot of bottlenecks yet to address. And she has mentioned some of them. Infrastructure challenges. Just this morning, I was at the office of the Prime Minister. We were discussing how to remove impediments to export, most especially of fruits and vegetables to the international market. And we are talking about infrastructure, like for those commodities that have to be sold fresh, you must have a cold chain.
Exactly.
Right from the garden up to the ultimate market. But we are lacking such a chain here. You must have education of the farmers on how to go about producing for such a market, the good agricultural practices. Our extension services are still wanting. And then you must have laboratory infrastructure to test, to get residues of chemicals, to get microorganisms, to detect whether there are any of those in the products that you are exporting. Then you must have inspectors at points of exit. All these are bottlenecks. But we also have others, like we have other bottlenecks. For example, issues of linkage. You brought the issue of linkage between research and the farmer. Transferring technologies from the labs to the farmer. It is still a problem. Narrow has a long list of new technologies. But when you go to the farmer to find out how many of them are being exploited by the farmers, you'll find a very miserable percentage. So that is a big bottleneck. But of course, there is another one of
what on specifically that as
Yes.
a government.
What's
What are
the-
you specifically or deliberately doing to bridge that gap?
Oh yes, first of all, we have recognized that it's a problem. We have a long list of those which are not reaching the farmers. How do we solve it? It's about extension service. It's the extension service people that must tell the population about those new varieties of maize, new varieties of coffee, and so on and so forth, and even help them to transfer those technologies. I'll give an example. The other day I was at one of the our institutes, narrow institutes at near Namlonge.
Yeah.
It is where the National Livestock Resources Research Institute is based now. It's a place called Chesere.
Just near
Namlonge. Nachesasa. Now, this place of Nachesasa, I found scientists there able now to make embryos. They cross a cow from Europe with a cow from Ankole and get a very resilient breed. And they just carry that embryo in a test tube and put it in your cow back home in Rango.
In Nebi.
In Nebi, at a very small cost. I found them with that technology, but they've not yet transferred any. When you ask any farmer whether they've received any. So what we are saying is that we are going to deliberate.
They might be invoking the costs and the where now, what Sarah is saying, how much are you able to now help them comes in.
This is the point I'm making.
So
that as
Professor
government
is saying something?
Yeah, yeah, thank you very much, Charles.
You wanted to inform him of
Yes, I wanted to inform him. Maybe the question, other than us going around the circles, us analyzing what the problems are, maybe, Honorable Minister, you could be more deliberate to ask or to maybe let us know, and the viewers know, when you last, for example, consulted the College of Agriculture. Because the things you're saying, Makerere scientists have explored them. Even when you talk about Nachesasa, that's a research base of Makerere University. So they are doing all these things. They, for example, KAYES, or College of Agriculture, did the Molimi tractor, which is a low-cost tractor for a peasant farmer. But they stopped there because they have to uptake.
So, Professor, you have answered yourself.
Yes.
Nachesasa is an institution of NARO, which is an institution of
government.
The Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry and Fisheries. But it's not working alone.
I know.
It is working with the College of Agriculture.
Yes. And
it is working with the College of Veterinary Services.
Medicine.
So we are working together. Actually, many of the scientists in Makerere University go to our narrow institutes to get involved in the research and in the development of such technologies. We are working together.
Yeah, and that one I agree.
Now, it's going to be more interesting when we come back from the break. I can see now the interest.
I would like to speak
now, I can see now it's becoming a matter of food.
No, because at the end of the day,
concerns everybody. So let's go for a break right now.
It's food, it's income, it's everything. It's foreign exchange.
Food, it's income, it's the economy.
Yes.
It is labor, it is work,
it is foreign exchange.
It is identity, it is gender.
Now, I like all those.
Yes.
Let's go for a break, and when we come back, I will be bringing in Professor to raise more questions, but also Dr. Dixon wants to respond. He's really itching to respond. Let's take that break now.
So, I'm here to announce that the MTN Kampala Marathon is back. And this year, we are running for babies. To be clear, I am not talking about a baby. No. And neither am I talking about to be baby. I am talking about these small dollars.
Run for babies in the MTN Kampala Marathon on Sunday, 20th November 2022. Dial *165*77# or use the Momo app to register.
Do you need data collection services, data analysis and reporting, monitoring and evaluation systems? Then contact Mold Technologies, a professional research firm that has provided many organizations with timely research solutions for over 15 years. For more information, visit www.mt.co.ug or call us on 0704 913 399 or 0782 602 963. Visit our office in Kampala at Sayuni Complex in Tinda. Mood Technologies, your professional research firm.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone, the most affordable smartphone in Uganda. You get to enjoy free 1 GB for the next 11 months. My Airtel 4G smartphone, your best value for money. Visit the nearest Airtel outlet today and get one at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100-066 or send a free SMS to your report on 8500. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello? Hello? This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagements with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Did you know that a cashless, secure, and convenient lifestyle is possible with Airtel Money Pay? Pay for your goods and services in the following simple steps. Dial *185*9#. Enter the merchant ID. Enter the amount. Enter payment reference, for example, school items. Please enter PIN to confirm. You will receive a confirmation message for a successful transaction. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on air, and Dr. Dixon and Professor, we are actually back on air.
I mean you are
we are back on air. I can now see it has become a topic, a true topic now of, we said of what? Of food, of money, of economy, foreign exchange. It is a livelihood.
Our identity.
Our identity, and I am enjoying it. And ladies and gentlemen out there, one of the things we are going to be discussing is also on the quality of food that we are eating in the country. The question between Dr. Dick and Sarah, they have been discussing, you know, that because there is a research that came out recently from the Bureau of Statistics that Western Uganda, much as it has a lot of food, excess food, there is actually more malnutrition in Western Uganda. So the question is, what kind of food are the people of Western, my Bakos of Western Uganda eating to get malnourished? And Professor has volunteered that she's going to answer for the reason. But first, the Minister, you had some addition to make in just 1 minute, and then Dixon has been itching to respond to some of the issues. Honorable Minister, and then I will bring in Professor.
No, I'll only respond to what Doctor talked about Karamoja. When Doctor says government shouldn't leave its people to starve.
Because there is excess food in another part of the country. And
yet there is excess food elsewhere.
Yeah.
I acknowledge doctors' diagnosis of the problem. The problem is that we are not looking at this from a food system's point of view. You see, when you look at a food system, you look at production, you look at handling, you look at processing, you look at storage, you look at transportation, you look at trading.
Entire system.
The entire system.
Yeah.
So how come that there is food in other parts of the country, but it can't reach Karamoja? That's a very valid question. However, as government, we have not sat back and looked on. We have 3 measures. Immediate measure is to rescue the situation through food distribution. But this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. Yes, the Prime Minister has mobilized the resources to distribute food to Karamoja, but it's not sustainable. That's why, as Minister of Agriculture, we have come up with a strategy of giving out seeds for fast-growing crops. Crops that can grow in a matter of 50 days. That is cowpeas, green gram, the small tiny white beans. Those can grow in 50 days. And you can even get...
Less than 2 months.
Yes, you can even get vegetables from them at 3-4 weeks. So 2 weeks ago, I sent truckfuls of these seeds to Karamoja, and we gave it to all the districts. And we sent teams to sensitize the population and ask them to plant. So that we don't depend on food distribution only.
Okay.
But above that, the third measure is now to create a sustainable environment. How? You know, Karamoja, whenever it rains, within 3 hours, all the rain, the water from the rain has disappeared from Karamoja and gone into Vijisu, gone into Teso, gone to the surrounding places. So we have a strategy as government. My ministry is working together with the Ministry of Water and Environment to build large dams to hold that water, and then build irrigation systems to pick water from those dams and give them to the community, give it to the community for watering their animals and also watering their crops. You know, Karamoja has a green belt.
Yes.
Many of the districts are green, and they grow food. For example, Napak, for example, Karenga, for example, Abim. These are green districts. For example, you said Namalu. Yeah, Namalu is not a district. Yes,
na
kapiripirita na biratuk. So we want to build a resilient system.
Okay.
We are also working with the other development partners to support women, large-scale farmers, but particularly women. Why women? In Karamoja, it's women that build houses. It's women that grow food. It's women that look after children. But we also want to ask...
As you provide our brothers from Karamoja the foods and those, you know, crops and all that, you need to, under PDM, also move very, you know, deliberately to sensitize the men in Karamoja to ensure that they take on their roles. I think you don't have to, and it is actually even better you do it before the campaign time, because with campaign time you might fear to annoy the men. You know? So for me, when I went there and heard about it, and then recently I heard about it in different discussions, the women are the ones even roofing the houses, and the question is, what are the men doing?
Yes.
Nobody wants to answer that question.
And yet they know what they are doing. And you also know.
And your government also fears too.
We shall answer
Dr.
that
Dixon,
yeah.
Dr. Dick, you were itching to respond to a number of the questions, but there is one, I think, on how much transformation to the economy, and just ignore the ones now the minister has responded to, the ones that needed government. So just respond to the ones you...
Thank you, Charles. I was to confess my sin. As a villager, I'm an observational scientist.
Yes.
And for me, facts and the contextualized facts indeed speak louder than any other theory. So I don't know much of sensationalism. So I look at the facts as they are. When you compare Uganda with other countries, and you talk about 60 years, out of the 36 years we have, 60 years we have been independent, the only stable years that you can say is predictability out of the 60 are the 36. The rest, there is war. There is what you cannot say we were under a stable, and you know what war and all the other things can do, especially on allocation of resources and stability for people to produce. But I would like to challenge the elites to put the context of those. And then you compare again scientists and know-how and delivery of know-how, because most of the things I've heard is rehearsed criticism of extension workers. In 60 years, in 100 years of Makerere University, know-how is a specialized skill in agriculture. You cannot just simply get a veterinary man, put him on a sub-county, and then he knows how to grow peas. You cannot get a specialist on crop science and put him on my farm. He knows how to look after East Coast fever. He doesn't. Makerere University in 100 years, how many veterinary officers have it trained? If you are asking Uganda to extend any know-how on every farm, how many veterinary officers are we going to produce? Is this the problem of not seeing the right sunshine on the table? There is a pace. Now, why are you not producing kids who are going to the university to learn the science so that the agriculture can send them to the farms to train? You can do the numbers. You look at the crop scientists that have been produced by Makerere, which you are talking about. Look at the numbers of the veterinary officers who are supposed to be giving specialized. This, I said I'm not a spokesperson of the government of Uganda. I'm a farmer. I came from the village, right away from Wemirondo coming here. But I am looking at the question why you invited me here. The role of agriculture in economic transformation. Appreciation of that transformation. What exactly has taken place in a historical perspective and a geopolitical perspective? When you talk about Asia, there is a contribution of geography to development. Asia cannot be compared to Uganda. Asia is a land, first and foremost, you look at the geopolitical position of Uganda and the Asia. And the Asian countries you are talking about. There is a very concrete story about the contribution of geography to development. And now this remove a comparison of mangoes and oranges and apples. We cannot compare them. We can compare the time taken, but the question of geopolitical positioning is a different one. Then we go to the extension, the university outreach, and the interrelationship with, I speak on behalf of the farmers. And I also teach in the university in agriculture. And I see the efforts, all the researchers you are looking at there. We have, in the department where I am, almost 30 people. They have projects that go directly to the farm. But do you know how many farmers we have in the country? We have 4.5 million households in the farming sector. Times 6, that is approximately 24 million people. And you are expecting 40 people to reach 24 million people. What is the ratio? There is the problem government, is the problem agriculture, is the problem, or it is a stage of development. That's why I said, if you are coming from underground, but more to that, let's compare agricultural transformation in China. Since Deng Xiaoping took over power in 1978, agriculture of China has just simply, and it has not reached the peak, on which it can say this is the peak of a developed country, whereby agriculture has liberated labor to go to industrial sector. So the question, we have to contextualize, but also be backed by science. Let me stop on the outreach of the university. I do appreciate, actually, the work of the university people are doing in reaching out to the farmers. But they are a small drop in the curve. But the government has no way it can accelerate. You are going to see a general, they call it a general equilibrium. I have heard the talk here, you called it a systems approach. It is a complex system. You cannot say every road has to be fixed by 34 engineers who are produced every end of the year. There is a systems approach. If you interpret things in a partial equilibrium, you see only the side of your the side where you are being hit by the sunshine. The other side which is not hit. Let's go to research or national. We have the most competent scientists under NARO, National Agricultural Research Organization, on the African continent. There is nobody who can beat the Ugandan scientists. We have decentralized. When I say I mean Uganda, I am speaking like a responsible national system, not on behalf of the minister. He didn't give me that responsibility. But we have 11 zonal agriculture and manned by highly trained scientists in this country. And those scientists, they are manning, even if you are seeing the 10 zones, they are manning thousands of farmers, smallholder farmers. The structure of agriculture in this country was not formulated by NRM government or any other government for that matter. The big farms, the big commercial farms, and then the smallholder farmers, they have organizational capacity risk. You need a lot of resources to do. We are not responsible. In 60 years, those are approximately two generations. We could have accelerated illiteracy rate from where it was to where it is. Because the literacy, functional literacy, is very important in mindset change. So when I look at by the way, even governments learn. Everybody, including you who have families at home, you learn every day. You don't wake up and become an expert of a parent. No, you learn. So you look at the efforts that are being made right now. It is a learning path. We are on a path or a trajectory that can only deliver us to take off, not backward. Because, yes, we are on a takeoff. Because, again, you go to the structure of the economy. You're saying 70% of our people are in agriculture. But let's split. We are 24% agriculture to GDP. We are 25 industry, then 25, the other 50 almost service sector. Services. But in the industry sector, who contributes? How many industries that are non-agriculture in this country? They are all agro-processing and the like. So you cannot start saying, oh, no, now country which, no, even the industry, the 30% you are talking about, depends on agriculture. By the way, there is non-monetary GDP, which is not accounted for in the monetary GDP you are talking about. So in my view, the question which would be very helpful now, how do we accelerate the transformation we do desire? Everybody pinpoints, let me go back to the fallacy of cooperatives. Everybody wants to blame the breakdown of the cooperatives, blah, blah, blah. There are new models of how. Now that you have touched on the cooperatives, yes. Someone who is very passionate about cooperatives with the Uhuru Institute, Leonard Okello. Yeah, my friend, you probably know him. Yeah, you know him. My friend. He says, did you know that by 1970, cooperatives employed 2.5 times the size of the public service of Uganda? Then he says, he wrote a number of things. Then he said, the marketing infrastructure from the primary cooperative stores, the district union processing stores, transport to marketing boards at the national levels to then sell international, talking about the full chain. And then he says, it is not clear what marketing system replaced cooperatives, the cooperative ones. He says there was a valley dam, further information, there was a valley dam in all sub-counties in Uganda too, where they did not exist. Where did they go? And the first big project in 1987 was Valley Dam in Karamoja. What happened to them? Agriculture is, in my view, a generational business, not a short-term project. And Charles, I think you're very right to ask those questions. First of all, my neighbor, thank you for agreeing with everything we have said. Because you have not contested anything. You are going to distract. Professor, let him finish. Doctor, in 2 minutes, and then I bring in Professor. Yes, you can. So the idea, you mentioned cooperatives. Respond to Leonard Okello. Leonard, now this what do they call it? This. Cooperative movement? No, I've missed the English term. Now the village is killing me. But let me concentrate on the idea that now you called the issue of cooperatives, you refer to it as fallacy. There are those who insist that we cannot transform because cooperatives were destroyed. No, there are new models right now. Technology has enabled, it is enabling, and it continues to enable even a smallholder farmer back at home, because show me a country that actually has advanced and graduated from agriculture that is still championing cooperative as a model for. They are independent. If there was a move that should be... Isn't Kenya next to us here doing great with the cooperatives? How is it doing? Is it an example that you are going to say? That's what I am. At least they are better than us in terms of organizing the farmers. How are they better than us? Are there people not dying? Are they not people not dying of hunger? Oh, yes, they have. But the issue, we're talking about organization of the farmers. If I was going to compare myself, tell us. I would not compare myself with Kenya. Which one? If I hear the professor was saying, think big. If I was going to think big, then I would not think like Kenya.
Kenya, okay,
no,
that's fair enough.
Kenya is
small.
Is as struggling as we are doing, and we actually feed Kenya. For
yes,
your information.
in terms of food, yes,
so
that's true. That I agree with you.
If we give sensationalization of our debate, we miss the opportunities to transform a need. And that is
Professor is itching to come.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And that's, for me, I really want to thank Dr. Dixon for agreeing with most of the things we have said.
Yes.
For one, we agreed that scientists' role is to do research. Scientists are not extension workers. So the scientists cannot be the ones at moving household to household. They develop an innovation, our minister develops interest, or actually the ministry should be telling them we have this problem.
Madam, we don't agree.
No, can I finish? No, can I finish?
I refuse this one. I refuse this one. Let me clarify.
Dixon, just a minute.
Okay, you are not agreeing with me. Now let me submit. Okay, Charles.
Let's have order.
Speaking, you read the
Dr. Dick, just listen.
Yes.
Okay.
Professor, listen to you. Now listen to her, and then to Sarah. I will give you the opportunity.
Decorum demands that you listen to others who listen to you when you're speaking. Now, yes, and I don't want to interrupt.
But now,
I wanted to say the point I was saying. Okay, now I'm not disagreeing with him. He has disagreed with me. But the point is, our researchers, the mandate for them is to do research. What we expect as a university is the ministry to use our colleges as the first point of call. We have a problem here. How can we resolve it? And as both of them have agreed, our researchers are doing very well, but there are few. The ones he works with are 40. They can't be in the 2.6 million farm households. So that brings the emphasis on extension. And extension workers, I never say that they have to be trained by Makerere University. Extension workers came from specialized units, specialized colleges at the lower level. That bit was taken out by liberalization of agriculture. And that is when they were taken out. So if we want to grow agriculture, we have to bring that chain back, because our scientists are too few, they're not going to run around. And the minister said very well that we cannot celebrate colonial agriculture, which was the 4 crops, and we expanded. What you also needed to be honest about is this comes from the 8th Uruguay round, 1995 to 2000, which demanded, it is part of the GATT, the General Agreements on Tariffs and Trade, which demanded, and it is Uruguay 8th because that's when they bring in agriculture, which demanded the expansion of exports, whereby they were no longer now depending on the traditional cash crops, but they brought in the food systems, the foods as cash crops, and also brought in horticulture. Now, while we celebrate that because it expanded the income to Uganda, it creates the paradox you have in Bushenyi. Bushenyi being the food basket of Uganda, but also having the highest levels of malnutrition in the country. And then you have the whole country being food insecure. Because what happens with the neoliberalism in agriculture? Silos went down, extension workers left, people were left on their own. And Mr. Minister, even if you give people 100 million at the PDM, if you are going to leave it to choice, let those who want to do this, do that, and the other, we shall still be in that same system. So the colonial system, we don't want to celebrate them, but at least they had the sense to understand that you put infrastructure where production is coming from. And they did that very well. So we don't want to celebrate them. We are in a new era of Uruguay 8. So for us, we are going to grow other things. But can we still put production? Can we put infrastructure where production is coming from? And the other thing we also need to know that until we went into the liberalization of agriculture and celebrating food crops as cash crops, we had never been food insecure as this country. We are now very food insecure, and the paradox of everything produced is sold for cash. Then when you grow it and you sell it, then you cannot access it in the lowest market. You have to travel further to get a bean seed. We used to have that in Masaka and Lukaya, where the whole crop, the whole farm is actually sold off. And the owners of the farm are reduced to observers and people who are keeping for the middlemen who will come to collect at the level of extension.
I can give you an example of one of the problems in West Nile. I'm told the South Sudanese, when there is hunger facing them, they have money, they come and buy cassava from the garden.
Yeah, they buy the garden.
And so you discover that
garden.
families, but they literally buy the garden.
And the family stops.
The family stops, they have money, and this is their staple food, so they have nothing to eat. Hence, people are complaining of hunger, also almost threatening famine. So
and Charles, we have talked about the different advancements in agriculture, but we also have to explain why we have 80% arable land and only 35% is being farmed. And this is not to blame anybody. I think we are here to say, how do we think forward? Transform the economy, the sector, as a way of transforming the economy. And our ZADIs are there. The Zone Agricultural Research Stations are there. The DFIs, the District Farm Institutes, were there, at least at the time we were growing up. So the issue is, how do we get the things, because a lot of money is being pumped into research, even in Makerere from government, but also from the donors. Because if you don't control that aspect, then you get into the scenario of whose science, whose agriculture. Whose science are you doing? And science for who? Because if we don't answer that question, then we shall end up in an identity crisis. If everything we are growing and developing is for a European market, our people are going to starve. Okay? If Karamoja are largely cattle keepers and we want to turn them into agriculturalists, we might have a crisis, depending on how long pastoralism grew up there. That's why he told you he's a cattle keeper, and he's into animal husbandry. In as much as he's a leader of farmers, he's not growing crops. There are identity issues in that matters. Okay, you will correct me when you get the time to correct me. So, Mr. Minister, we appreciate that actually you're giving Karamojong's green gram, and they are going to plant and eat and survive the death. But we are also going to ask, if they're starving, how are they going to be able to farm? That's why we need to celebrate the Pastor Kayanjas who have taken their tractors and have plowed 700 acres within 1 week. So these things have to connect, and we are all agreeing on the need to make the right connections. But also, that's where we also need to consult our experts better. Was the green gram the right crop for Karamoja? Karamoja has 3 agricultural systems, and our College of Agriculture has mapped these systems very well. Were they consulted in any way? Are you going to work with them in any way? Because as you said, the southern bit is agricultural. You have a cattle belt, but they're all starving. And the point really goes back to distribution. So I think we know there are issues which are affecting us, and we're here to find answers and discuss our economy, not defending anything. And I think also as we do this, we need to pay attention to where are we as a country. It's true we are thinking big, but if you 87% of your people are in peasantry, they might begin by collaborating. And cooperatives are not really a bad thing. Recently, the president was telling us that the reason there's big capital in advanced countries is because people work collaboratively. And our problem, he said, was that we want to move solo. He was encouraging us to crowd save. So while the people on this panel can crowd save into a circle using finance, let those who are into farm household crowd save around their farms. So that if tomorrow the Saudis want a ton of tamarind, then our people can produce. Right now, even no big farmer can produce these things because we are all running around. Even the big successful farmers are running around because things are not connecting. So can we get these things to connect?
Thank you very much. Now, Desara, who is a lawyer.
No, I want to start by clarifying that there are sectors in industry. So you have sectors, the primary sector of the economy, these are the raw materials industry, and that's where the agricultural industries fall, and that's where there is need for value addition, more value addition, so that the farmer can get value for money in terms of export. We have the secondary sector of the economy, which is manufacturing and construction. These industries also exist in Uganda. We also have the tertiary sector of the economy, which is the service industry. And then you can go on with the quaternary and quinary sectors, which is now information services and human services. And we know that the world has gone e-knowledge and e-economy. So we need also to think in that line, other than celebrating peasantry. So as we talk about developing the country, I think we need to know that agriculture benefits a country better when it's properly aligned with other sectors. We need innovations and technology in agriculture. the issues of research, innovation, adaptation, they must apply in agriculture. If you look at the vertical coordination of the international value chains, for example, coffee, which is the second highest export for this country, it used to be the first until when gold emerged from where I don't know, because I don't know where we are getting that gold from. But now coffee is number 2 after being overthrown by gold. So we need to see what is our coordination of this international value chain system. Honorable Minister, we have dropped out of the International Coffee Agency. What are I know that there was a pinnated debate, but I don't want to go into that. But what is your plan in terms of vertical coordination of international values chain to use agriculture to further transform this country? We need to look at issues of the green revolution and other technology changes. The minister started with the description of how people can develop even with small size of land. But what technology are we using? Can we go green? Other countries have gone green and harvested more agricultural productivity and development for their countries. And that includes the Asian tigers you want to avoid. It is not that they are only concentrated in agriculture and in industrialization, and they are not doing agriculture. So to what extent are we trying to move with the trends in the world in terms of technology, in terms of marketing? What is our plan as a country?
I'm going to now bring in very fast the people out there. They have sent in messages and comments. But Dr. Dick, just for your information, Leonard is not sleeping in a discussion with you. He says 45% of GDP of Kenya is delivered by cooperatives. That's Leonard. Yes. He lived in Kenya for many years.
And they have 45% of their population in middle income and upper income status. So you can't say Kenya has nothing.
And then here is another.
Now he says, you are preaching to me that I shouldn't talk when they are talking. You are talking.
No. He says. Then he says, 67% of electricity is distributed by cooperatives in the USA. That's the leading economy in the world. Then Peter from Serere says. From Dr. Dick's introductory presentation, he seems to indicate that Uganda got independence in 1986. John Igumira Rwamasindi from Kiruhura says, agriculture as a sector has 5 major roles it plays in a country for us to be able to tell that it has indeed transformed the country's economy. These roles include 1, creating jobs, 2, source of foreign currency, which is the most important for any country, 3, diversification of the economy, 4, food security, and 5, supplying other industries with raw materials. I can confidently say that at 60 years of independence, our agriculture sector has lived to our expectations so far. And he says, kudos to the Ministry of, to MAIF, the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, UNFF, and other agricultural sectors in Uganda. So Dick, there is someone there who has he's called John Igumira, who is bringing out, more authoritative argument there. James Odeke from Mutungo Bina says, the government of Uganda has to take deliberate action towards the agricultural sector development. For example, give each parish a tractor, make the different communities feel a sense of ownership towards their own growth as you advocate as regards putting the land tenure system together. Words without action will not take us far. And then Benjamin Mutambuka from Kampala says, in absence of simple irrigation tools and the very unreliable rainfall we have now, what's the insurance of the poor beneficiary of PDM money? Will they not default and lose the title they have? Honorable, that's for you. And then Isaac Rubega from Bugolobi says, Dr. Sarah, thanks for telling those people the truth. God bless you and keep up that spirit and never.
Never do it.
He says, don't be bought by government to their side. Doctor, Honorable Minister, do you buy people? Isaac Rubega is insinuating that you buy some people.
You should give me mine.
Ausi Baliesima from Hoima says, agriculture can be improved and break the chain of poverty if government can take lead in identifying regional, national, and foreign markets for both unprocessed and value-added products, other than leaving agricultural products to traders that cheat the rural farmers by offering it dictating prices. And then James Oluba from Ginger says the answers to Sarah's questions lie in the budget allocations and the changes in the agricultural institutions which were changed, and generally it is a gamble. Then there is Patrick from Lira says, just greet Mama Sarah. Today she deserves to be a mother of our country. Mama, God bless you for the heart of love you have for the poor farmers of Uganda. There are two Sarahs here, so both of them,
yes.
Patrick. And then there's another person here talking about coffee, someone called Dawoodi. He says, Charles, ask the minister, most coffee exporters of raw coffee are foreign. How much of the $800 million in coffee export actually comes back to Uganda? How much of it remains in safe havens and only a little come back to buy more raw coffee? That's from another person to the Honorable Minister. And then Sir Igumira, I have already read your comments. There are many questions and comments. I think for now, let me, I know that we are now left with just about 12 minutes to wind up. I love the discussion. It's very interesting. It's about livelihood, very important, agriculture to the lives of our people. But time now. There is also, I need us to touch on the issue of next, is it on Sunday? World Food Day. Yes, and I need us to touch on it. It's about leaving no one behind, and it's, I think for me, it's very interesting that we are going to be commemorating World Food Day, but coming at a time when we are having all these discussions, food security, and in the proper nutrition for our people. We are talking about some parts of the country, you know, in starvation, real famine situation. The minister, your colleague, shared with us a message that because he's not around, he said, I allow him share with us his message. So I think it is 2 minutes, producer. My producer says it's some 2-3 minutes, and then we shall do a round with the questions that have come and incorporating your thoughts about World Food Day as well. Etiang, the message from the Honorable Minister.
The basic understanding of this
volume.
Food is important. It's an important ingredient of our livelihood. It's one of the first or most primary basic need of a human being. So planning for it is a noble activity every human being must plan for. Planning for it at homestead level, planning for it at regional and country and continental level, because you cannot be secure if your neighbors are hungry. You get it? It feeds into the entire security architecture of a country or a continent. I am sure even security experts look at food as a component. So we commemorate this day to use it to highlight the good cases of success in food production, but also importantly to highlight those remaining bottlenecks, like the one we've been articulating. Farming better, farming smart for the environment, and farming with the economics in mind. If you don't farm with the economics in mind, if you don't ask yourself, I am producing food, but I'm producing food at what cost? And beyond producing food for my stomach and homestead, there are others who want food, but who are not favored by the means to produce the food. They are an opportunity for me to exploit. So the World Food Day is not just a mere day for celebration, but it's a day dedicated to having that important conversation of food security, of animal feed security, and of nutritional security. Because food security, or practically even if you said food, it is the major definitive factor, or a factor that explains other outcomes. Okay? A factor that other factors depend on. If you are to talk of nutrition, can you be nutrition? Can you really achieve a nutrient efficient population when your food base is weak or lacking? So food security will give you the nutrition status of your country. Some of the products of nutrition are from plants which you grow. Others are from animals. We harvest eggs from poultry. We harvest milk and beef from the animals, the cows, the cattle. But they will give you the quality eggs, the bad eggs, the good milk, the bad beef, depending on what you feed them. That's why now the conversation is about One Health. What you feed the animal is what indirectly you feed yourself. What you feed the fish is what you feed yourself. So we no longer talk of food security alone. Like our president says, that patriotism, nationalism is not enough. We need patriotism. And he says patriotism is also not enough. We need Pan-Africanism. So food security alone is not enough. We need animal feed security too. And we eventually need nutrition security. So the Food World Day, or the Food Day, is a platform for recognizing the importance of food systems and the investments we need to marshal as countries, as organizations, local, international, and regional, need to do. It is also a day to help us look at our plans, policies, frameworks, whether they are supportive enough to enable us sustainably produce food. Sustainably. Good for the people and also good for the planet. If we don't achieve that balance, that interplay, safe food, safe people, and a safe planet, we shall not be doing good to the globe and to mankind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and a good message there. I'm coming in to meet some of the discussions we are having. Nutritious food, food security, you know, recognizing the importance of food systems. Those are all issues we have discussed, and in line with what is going to form part of the discussion of this World Food Day. Someone has sent me a message here that the former Vice President, Speciosa Kazibwe, is glued watching the show. very interesting. And please just know that. Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Speciosa Wandira Kazibwe. If you're watching us, and this is an important aspect of life, food, the issue of livelihoods, and Honorable Minister, are you from Chigulu?
I'm from Chigulu North.
Oh, from Chigulu North.
And
the Honorable Kazibwe is
Vice
from
President is from Chigulu South.
Yes, but it is all Chigulu.
Chigulu.
Chigulu North or Chigulu South, they are all Chigulu. Gentlemen and ladies, unfortunately, we have to end the show. I'm going to give each of you, I'm going to be fair to all of you, 1.5 minutes each. So pick from whichever side, whichever issue came up. I will ask the managers of UBC, we need to have more discussions on issues of agriculture, issues of food, and the science, the production systems, and all these things. It's a very important topic from what I have seen. There are hundreds of messages that I can't even now read because of time. I will probably find time and sieve through them and share with some of them with you so that you can, in your subsequent discussions, even outside of this show, you can think about them and discuss them. So Sarah, be rated status of now as we end.
I think that what Ugandans need, one is the market information. Those who are involved in produce for, even those with subsistence, even if it is a small scale, what market information do they get? How do they plan? What decisions do they make? That also includes climate information. You plan, the floods come, or you have prolonged drought, and improving irrigation for climate adaptation. Because we have finally climate change has caught up with us. It used to sound like theory, but we are now living it. It is a fact, it is the truth. So we must plan and shift our planning toward saving the environment, but also climate adaptation methods, especially us who largely depend on agriculture. We need to, I want to request the minister that when we make commitments, for example, the Maputo Protocol on 10% fund for agriculture, the Abuja Declaration on using agriculture for produce, and the Marabo Declaration on mainstreaming agriculture, and with the 2025 agenda, I don't know to what extent would you rank Uganda's performance towards the Marabo Declaration, mainstreaming agriculture as an engine for growth and development as much as you diversify the economy. So can we stick to those commitments? Because some of these challenges speak to funding. The tokenism funding that goes into a large sector with the biggest population, size of our population. Then we need to get serious on matters of value addition. Other than having, you know, people we get like a desk, whatever, desk shopping. We need to empower the people involved in the sector to add value to the produce, to the produce in the country. Coffee has a lot of actors, for example. It is our second biggest foreign exchange, and until 2 years ago, it was the first. Why don't we empower the actors to add more value to their produce? And we earn more money in foreign exchange instead of shopping people and we want to give them money and tell them what to do.
Thank you very much.
On that.
Dr. Dick.
Thank you, Charles. I confess to my sin. I said I am an observational scientist. Therefore, I have difficulty with big names. But I will speak like a statesman. Nicole Machiavelli said, a statesman will do good when it is possible and evil when it is necessary. So he's not specifically there to entertain. and I will not entertain. I said I have difficulties when non-factual, non-scientific. For instance, Professor, there is a case which was disturbing me. I was one of the delegates, one of the members of negotiating team in Uganda, member of the my first job was to do international trade negotiations. The agriculture agreement has never been completed. It is still under negotiations. So there is no single country in the world that actually under WTO uses this because there is no agreement on it. So that is ineffectual. So big words can be very entertaining, but in terms of what we need to do as nationalists to push forward our sector, the course is different. Then let's go to the scientists. I would like, therefore, my concluding remark is, I'm proud what actually where we have come and where we are going as a country. You look at the extension system, almost every district or region, there is a farm school, which is supposed to be teaching and training the lesser specialized scientists. You say extension should be manned by non-scientists from the university. But the truth is, it is very difficult to be able to train somebody with know-how. You have seen communication specialists, I've seen all those stuff. Adaptation of technologies, you can look at the phones. How many functions do you use on your own phones? So where we have come from and where we are going, I recommend. Now, I go to the Honorable Minister. My view is, while the rest are working for the most plausible recommendation would be, Uganda, we need to run. We don't need to be satisfied with the effort we are making, but to run. There's issues of value addition for the last 5 years or since 2013. Uganda has pumped money on agro-industrialization through nuts and the like. And we have seen some bumper harvest coming over there on a number of sectors. So we need to appreciate the efforts that actually, as a country, we are making, and then add on. Then let me go to Okero on cooperatives. I do not actually think that we should, it's complementary. We have new models, new inclusive business models that are not necessarily cooperatives. Cooperatives did well. We cannot continue crying about cooperatives and how they, but they should innovate now. Take at this stage, what else can we gather? When I was going to study, there was an advert on CNN. The Middle East is rising. It is picking the best from the West and leaving the rest. Let's pick from a basket of initiatives or developments, innovations that are there, pick the best and move forward. The crying needs to stop.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much, and thanks a lot, Charles, and thanks a lot to our viewers. I think we have discussed a lot, but if we are to pick a few things, some of my parting shots would be, we need policy responsiveness. I know government has tried, but you see, we need to go deeper. If peasants have never held a large amount of money and you push to them 100 million with no training in financial literacy, you will cause problems. So we need policy responsiveness in terms of initiatives government is coming up with. Where are the majority of our people, and what do they need to move from one stage to another? And that will also help resolve the paradoxes. The liberalization of agriculture actually created problems, whether the treaty is fully implemented or not. Its impacts have been here with us since 1987. And so those kinds of things we need to rethink, because we are not stuck there. I know we play in a bigger global system, but what do we need to front as a country? And as we do policy responsiveness, even the initiatives we do have to be gender responsive. We have been here talking about some areas where women do most of the work. But the policies we are pushing down, do they acknowledge that this land is not owned by women? Do they acknowledge that the production, because women lack ownership of land, they may actually miss out on ownership of the produce and the cash that brings? And then what do unequal gender relations do in terms of impacting production at a farm household level? We also need to think about cultural responsiveness, so that at the end of the day, when we are developing these things, we are not pushing enterprises to communities that actually do not associate with those enterprises. And we have a lot of experts to guide us on that. Of course, the cry within the sector in agriculture, as with all other sectors, has been one of adoption. Our government is benevolent. It has the best interest of the people at heart, and introduces these things, and the peasants or the majority just don't touch it. Of course, now we are pushing mindset change. But we also need to acknowledge that mindset change is a function of a process. It is not a good you push there, that therefore today, change your mindset. Mindset change comes after a long aspect of engaging with people's norms, people's values. Some of the disciplines that help with engaging those kinds of things are some of the disciplines we really don't value. But these are things, soft skills, history, literature, English, those cultural things. Even things as simple as having agriculture as a subject in a primary school, because they used to be there. So let us be aware that mindset change is not a thing in itself, but it is a function of a process, and therefore work on the processes that deliver mindset change. And all of this is speaking towards having a complete chain. And this complete chain is across the sector, but also within the sector, but also across sectors. Agriculture is not simply about just growing crops in the soil and looking after cattle. Agriculture is a way of life. It is a culture. It is an identity. It is so many things. It is trade, as the minister has said. It is income. It is jobs. So we need to move that together. And lastly, is to simply announce that tomorrow, beginning tomorrow, we are having symposiums in Makerere celebrating 100 years of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. So through Mwalimu's eyes and lens, we are celebrating Pan-Africanism. And why is this important to even the debate we are having today? It goes back to the question of whose science for who, whose agriculture are we talking about? If we don't answer those questions, we shall keep pushing models that have worked elsewhere but may not work here. Let's have people at the center. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. People at the center. Honorable Minister, it speaks to your message.
Thank you.
Leaving no one behind. The last message is yours.
The last message is mine. I want to bring out two issues and then make one announcement. One issue is to appreciate Mr. John Igumira, who summarized that the litmus paper as to whether my ministry has played this role in transforming this country is around
the 5 issues.
5 issues: jobs, foreign currency, diversification, food security, raw material. And I think we have done that. But we shouldn't celebrate. There are many challenges. And as a ministry, we have come up with a list of about 10 policy proposals that we have submitted to the political leadership, and the political leadership has approved them. We are in the kitchen. Many of them address the issues raised here, including issues of commitments raised by Dr. Sarah and Professor. So we shall come back and unveil that package. The last one is an announcement to the people out there that there is a new disease of banana that has come up. It's called the banana bunch top virus, BBTV. It came in from DRC and those other countries that side. Therefore, the most immediate neighbors to DRC, to Burundi, to Rwanda, to Tanzania have the highest risk.
That is entire Uganda.
That side. So, my advice to the population is that please don't move banana planting material from that belt to other parts of the country, all the way from West Nile up to Isingiro. Don't move planting materials.
Wow.
Because if you do so, you may transport this virus to the rest of the country. We are putting in place measures to contain this virus at that belt so that it doesn't spread to the rest of the country. I thank you.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Minister, Honorable Chagulaga Fred Bwino, in charge of Agriculture. Thank you very much, Professor Sarah Sally, Director, Center of Excellence in Notions of Identity, Makerere University. She's also Dean of the School of Women and Gender Studies. Thank you very much, Dr. Dick Nwamanya, President of the Uganda National Farmers Federation, and thanks for your leadership of the Farmers Federation. I like the notion of the concept of village philosophy. I will explore more how to understand how the workings of it and how to tap in the discussions of the village philosophers. It must be very interesting. Certainly, thank you very much, Dr. Sarah Birete of the Center for Constitutional Governance. I have some of my friends who are ardent followers of this show have sent me a message and said, we are also watching. You must also pass our announcement. One is from the faithful friends and devotees of St. Jude Tadeo in Naguru. And they have said, join us for our novena prayers of St. Jude with dedication beginning on October 19th, 2022 and ending on the feast day on October 28th, 2022 to honor and love and trust St. Jude with all your needs. And they will be also using the opportunity to do, to contribute towards building of St. Jude Shrine in Naguru, the construction of the St. Jude Shrine at Naguru in Kampala here. That message from Joseph and Aruma, thank you very much, Joseph Aruma Odoi, and all the devotees of St. Jude. And then in the day, the Operation Shuja got another commander, a friend I know, General Dick Olum, and we want to congratulate you. He's taking over from now Lieutenant General Kayanja, who has now been appointed as the commander for land forces. Those are some of the changes that came in the military, in the force this week. So we want to congratulate all the new commanders and continue serving and sacrificing for Uganda. To a friend, Dick Olum, thank you. We pray and we wish you the best in your next assignment on behalf of the nation. And to you out there, Ebola is still with us. So do take care. Ensure that the basic instructions from the advisory from the Ministry of Health, ensure that you follow them. We need all of us alive, and ensure that you avoid unnecessary hugging and keep your hands clean, wash your hands with soap and clean water, and ensure that you have as limited interaction as possible, especially with the people around you, more especially people that you do not know their origin. Otherwise, thank you very much, especially to those of you who continue being part of this show and contribute messages and questions, and that that lead to more of the discussions and understanding of the issues that are not familiar to us. Thank you very much. God bless you all. From the entire team here, we are saying good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.